Hey everyone, so it's Chris from the Dribble Drop here with Coach Ty Edwards from Tennessee State University. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
I can't complain. I can't complain. Enjoying March Madness in its fullest, and excited to see the rest of the games as they go through. So it's been awesome so far on the men's and the women's side for sure. You know.
Right. Same here. All day, every day, man. I'm looking forward to it. Thursday through Sunday.
Yeah.
I'll be going through withdrawal tomorrow morning.
Yeah. The only way you can fix that is you get on Synergy or something and watch a couple old ones.
Right.
There's been a couple good ones for sure.
No doubt.
So, Coach, when did you realize that coaching was something you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
I probably realized it when I was in high school. Actually, when I was in junior high school. You know, it's funny. I tell the story all the time. When I was growing up, you know, I come from Beloit, Wisconsin, so we played a little bit of everything. You know, we played football, basketball, baseball, depending on the season. So when I was in like 7th, 8th grade, I got a younger brother. He's 5 years younger than me. So we would, you know, in the summertime, you just go outside and you just play all day. Well, I had a big backyard, so we used to literally put on like football camps and basketball camps, me and my friend, for my brother and his crew, you know, and they were like I said, they were 5 years younger than us. So looking back, you know, when you're running a camp and you're like 13 years old, you're running a camp for 8-year-olds, you're actually coaching, you know. So I guess it probably started back then. I didn't realize it then, but I probably caught the ball like 13 years old.
Awesome. So like you mentioned, you're a native of Wisconsin. Play ball there. If you were to describe a Wisconsin basketball player in one word, what would it be and why?
Gritty. Where I'm from, that's why I love watching St. Peter's play. Where I'm from, man, it's a town of 35,000 people. We're right literally in the middle of Milwaukee and Chicago. So, you know, coming through Wisconsin, you always hear about, you know, ball players from Milwaukee, but you never really heard about Beloit, Wisconsin. So we would always go to Milwaukee or go to Chicago because, like I said, we're right smack in the middle. I can get to either one of them in less than an hour. So we're a small city, so we always had that chip on our shoulder. And we always played with something to prove. So that one word is gritty. That's definitely us, no doubt about
it. Okay, cool. If you were to use one word to describe your coaching style, what would it be and why? And not real, because I know you're a real dude and I know how you are, but you can't use real. So give me another one.
Authentic.
The cheat code. All right, Coach. So why is it authentic?
Well, I don't know. I only know one way. You know, I grew up being raised by not just my parents, but just by the people in the neighborhood. They were always straight shooters. You know, if you could play, then they would tell you. If you couldn't play, then they would tell you. If you did something wrong, they wouldn't beat behind the bush. They wouldn't sugarcoat it. So that's the way I was raised, man. I don't know anything else. And I don't think there's any substitute for the truth. You know, it may hurt, but at the end of the day, you're better because of it. So I just like to approach things by being completely honest and being completely transparent, you know, and I coach the exact same way.
So your first coaching stint on the D1 level, if I remember correctly, was St. Louis, right? Yeah, you had a couple stints there. Tell me about that time and what made that place the right place for you to start your career.
Man, that's the first place that gave me an opportunity. It's funny because I never really had aspirations to coach college. You know, I just love coaching. So when I got done playing, I played in Europe, I played in Taiwan. So when I came back home, I was teaching a little bit. I was doing some substitute teaching. I was finishing up grad school, helping out at my old high school, running some AAU camps. I had a couple AAU teams, boys and girls. I just love coaching. So it didn't really matter to me what level. I just knew I wanted to coach, knew I wanted to be around the game. So what happened was I actually had a real good friend who was the men's coach at Webster University, and he wanted me to come be his assistant. And I was like, cool. But then he told me he didn't have any money. And I'm like, yo, I'm not doing it for money, but I got to be able to eat. You know what I mean? I got to be able to eat something. I got to be able to lay my head somewhere. So he started laughing and he said, well, I got a friend that's the head coach at SLU on the women's side. Would you be interested in coaching women? And my exact words to him was, man, I don't care. I coach Dolphins. It don't matter. As long as they love basketball, man, let's get it popping. It didn't matter to me. So to make a long story short, Joe Pizzati gave me my first opportunity to coach college, and I took it and I ran with it. And it's crazy because the first year that I officially applied, she turned me down because, you know, she said I didn't have enough experience. You know, they always tell you, if you haven't coached, you don't have enough experience. So, you know, me, once again, I'm from Beloit, Wisconsin. I got a chip on my shoulder. So I'm like, really? I don't have enough experience? So that right there put the battery in my back, you know. So I remember I wrote her an email. It was politely professional, but it was also to the point. Basically, I said, you're going to see me again. I appreciate the opportunity, but you're going to see me again. You know, I feel like I got way more basketball experience than what you can see on a resume, but we'll get to that later. And then that following year, she called me back, interviewed me literally in an airport, and I got the job, and it's been on and popping ever since.
Awesome, awesome. So let's step away from basketball real quick. From what I've been told, you're a fan of romantic comedies. Those are your things.
What's that? I didn't hear
You're
you.
a fan of romantic comedies.
Oh man,
those are your things. All right. So, question number one. Tell me your favorite. Let me hear your favorite one. Like if you could choose one and be like, if an alien came to the country and said, yo, to the planet and said, romantic comedy, what is it? You give them this film right here. You'd be like, bam, this is it. This is my favorite.
That's an easy answer, but I don't really know if everybody would consider it a comedy. But When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, okay.
Man, that's A1 with me. I can watch that every day. Love that movie. Man, Billy Crystal, love that movie. Yeah. I'm a big Meg Ryan fan though. Sleepless in Seattle. Oh man, Sleepless in Seattle. Man, I love Jennifer Aniston. Yeah. Man, what do we talk? We can go all day. I love them. I love them, man. I love them. Yeah, there's nothing like a romantic comedy, man. Anything with Meg Ryan, Jennifer Aniston. Oh, I'm watching it. No doubt about it, man. Bridesmaids, all of them. Cameron Diaz, I love them. I love them, man. Awesome. But yeah, When Harry Met Sally is my favorite. No, it's an older one. It's an older one, man, but I love it. That's what a good one.
But a good one for sure, for sure. Your next stop as an assistant coach was Georgetown, correct? A good bit of players that were involved there that have succeeded on a higher level from a basketball standpoint and a media standpoint. You know, if I remember correctly, when you were there, you had Monica McNutt. You know,
my last recruit. That was my last recruit before I left.
She's tough. I mean, she's now really emerging in the media world as an analyst. She's next up. You know, she's next up. And then you have, you know, obviously Sugar Rogers. She was there, if I remember correctly, during your tenure too, McDonald's All-American. You know, so tell me about that experience. You know, and it's different when you're coaching, you know, like I tell people, it's different when you're coaching kids that are good players, you know, great players, can be off conference players, things of that nature, can build a culture around them, things like that. But it's a whole nother thing when you're dealing with a kid like Sugar, who can be a pro. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's going to feed her kids, her family with this ball, you know? So how do we maximize the potential, you know, of that kid? And what were some things you guys did to keep her motivated? Because they can get bored when you're skilled and talented. You can get bored quick. So just tell me about what you guys did and how'd you maximize her talent?
Well, let me clarify with Sugar. I never coached her at Georgetown. I was the first coach that recruited her.
Oh, okay.
And she was, when I left, she came in like right after I left. You know, same with Monica McNutt. I recruited Monica McNutt, you know, but she was the last kid I signed, and then I left to go to Alabama, like right when they got there. So I was a part of building that foundation, but a lot of those kids I never got to actively coach, even though I recruited them. But funny story about Sugar. So I get a call from Boo Williams over in Hampton, right? Sugar's a freshman, so he's telling us about this kid like every day because his sister was the head coach there. So he's calling his sister, Terry, there's this freshman here. I'm telling you, you got to come see her. You got to come see her. He was just mesmerized by her talent. So she told me, she said, okay, Ty, go ahead and drive down to Suffolk County and go check her out. So I go down to Suffolk County, this is freshman, and I'm watching her, and you can just tell within 5 minutes watching her in warm-ups, she just had it, and I think she was 14, 15 years old. She just had it. I can't even describe it. You know how when you see somebody and the way they go in and make layups, it's just a little bit different than everybody else's, and she had all the stuff that you couldn't teach. She would go off the wrong leg, but it would be at the right time. And you can tell she had spent a lot of time playing with guys. You can tell she had been playing in the playground because she had a feel for the game that you couldn't teach. And I'm talking about as literally as a freshman, as a 14-year-old. So I knew then. And she also had that star quality, because I'll never forget, the game was over and we're in the lobby, and although we couldn't talk to the players, this kid comes out of the locker room. It's like 8 o'clock at night, and she got sunglasses on. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, she's already a star. She wasn't really talking to nobody. You can just tell that's who she was. I'll never forget. She had sunglasses on. And I thought to myself, maybe her future is bright, So I could tell right then she had it, man. Same with Monica. I'm not surprised by nothing Monica's doing, man. She was so articulate from the first time we had a phone conversation, all of her official visits, her unofficial visits. Her mom was an educator. Her dad was extremely smart. So the success that Monica's having right now, I could have predicted that when she was a junior in high school, and I'm not surprised at all.
Mm-hmm. So let's step away from ball again. I heard you love to read.
Oh man, voracious reader.
You're a reader.
I'm a voracious reader, man.
So, tell me one of your favorite books that helped you as a coach. Because like one of my favorite books that I've read was Toughness from Jay Billis. I like that book a lot. I think Toughness by Billis is a good one. But I've read a bunch, and I'm always looking to learn about new ones. And it could be a basketball related book, or it could be Laws of Power, or whatever the case may be. So just tell me, a book or two that really, you're like, oh man, I was able to apply this book to my life from a coaching aspect.
The best one that I would say that kind of helped me in regards to coaching is called The Road Less Traveled. It's by M. Scott Peck. He passed away, but that book, phenomenal, because of what it basically teaches you is just to be who you are, be your true self, no matter what. And for me, because I'm so passionate about just being authentic and just being who you are, regardless of what happens as a result of it. When I read books that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? They emphasize that, or they pinpoint that. I always gravitate to those type of books, man. Another one is Death by Meeting. It's a great book, Death by Meeting. A lot of times, we meet just to meet. There's no purpose, So for me, I don't like to do anything that isn't needed. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, if I'm doing something, let's make it make sense. I don't just meet to meet. So for me, Death by Meeting was huge. And one of the big points in that book was any great meeting is like a great movie. And what do you watch a movie for? You're watching a movie for the conflict. You're not involved with the movie. You're not motivated by the movie until there's that level of conflict. Once that conflict arises, you're involved. A meeting is the exact same way. So if there's no conflict, and conflict is not negative, there's a huge difference between a conflict and being confrontational. Conflict is what intrigues you, because now you may have two opinions and you're trying to figure out the solution. At the end, you may agree to disagree, but that conflict is what keeps attracting you. So for me, that book resonated with me, and I use it right now to this day. My staff will tell you right now, we meet, but we don't just meet to meet. A lot of people just, all right, and then you don't have any objective. I'm like, look, what are we meeting on? This is what we're going to do. We're going to be here for this amount of time. That way, you come in, you have an agenda, you know how long you're going to be there. And I know sometimes it may last a little longer, but at least as opposed to just meeting to meet. I can't stand that. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, that's one of my sayings. No wasted emotion. I don't believe in wasted emotion. That's not me. Not at all.
Mm-hmm. Another book, Discipline Equals Freedom. The Book of the Dead, Unlocking Potential. Atomic Habits, I'm reading now. Will Smith autobiography helped me out. Jay Prince autobiography helped me out. Man, I read everything, man. Live, Love, Lead. One of the best books I've ever read is called The Best Damn Ship in the Navy. Man, that book is phenomenal when it talks about if you're really interested in learning how to be a better manager. It's basically about this guy And he basically took the worst ship in the Navy. It was called Benfold. And now, literally in less than a year, he made it into the best ship in the Navy. It's a great book. I recommend that to any and everybody. Great book.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely going to replay that and get these books, Coach. I'm a reader too, and I'm always looking for something that's going to better me. So I
No doubt.
appreciate those for sure.
No doubt.
Your next stop, if I remember correctly, was Alabama, like you
Mhm.
mentioned. Now you're Power 5, you're in the SEC. Another ball game at that level in a sense. You know, you're dealing with other teams you're going up against that have legitimate big time budgets and resources, right?
Mhm.
Tell me about that time there. You know, how hard it is to turn the corner there. I mean, I've seen a lot of teams that can't really turn a corner there, and then you see certain coaches that are able to do it. Like, for example, you got Ole Miss, you know, who was able to turn the corner in 2 to 3 years. Now they're in March Madness. But it's not by mistake. It's by design. So tell me about your time there, about your experience, how recruiting is on that level. And just, obviously every, conference game is crazy. So just tell me about that time.
Well, once again, you're gonna hear a common theme with me, man. And being from where I'm from, having that chip on your shoulder, being considered an underdog, always having to prove yourself. And I'm a Gemini, so anytime you tell me not to do something, that's probably exactly what I'm going to do, because I'm like 3 different people. So at the time, Alabama had just came off a year where they didn't win a game in the league. They were the worst team in the league. No one wanted to go there. Everybody told me it would be career suicide. So for me, it was like, okay, really?
Yeah.
All right, I got you. That's the challenge I needed, And it was at the time, it was the best league in the country. And to me, I think it still is from top to bottom, man. But every single night, like you said, there's no night off, man. When I came in the league, you had Sylvia Fowles, Candace Parker was still there. It was every night. It was a monster every single night. With us being, the worst team in the league at that particular time, it was tough to recruit. But like you said, we had the resources to recruit, but we didn't have the reputation. So a lot of the big time players wasn't coming to Alabama. So what do? You find those kids that have the same type of mentality that you had. I think by my 4th year, we made it to the 3rd round of the WNIT, had a top 5 recruiting class, had the #1 ranked kid in the country, stay home from Birmingham, and it kind of got us off and rolling. So for me, it was a pivotal moment in my career, because it was one of those times where everybody told me not to go. It would be career suicide. And I think it worked out well for me. It showed people that I can recruit, as well as coach. So that was a seminal moment in my basketball career from a coaching standpoint.
Tell me an experience via observation or conversation with a coach, with a fellow coach, whether it be a coworker in the sense of like, one of the people on your staff, or whether it be one of your coworkers when you were part of another staff that really helped elevate you and helped you see things differently. Because like I always say to people, through observation and conversation, we learn what to do and what not to do. So it could be a positive or it could be a negative. You don't have to say who you learned it from, but if there's an example of something that really, pulled you, can you give us one of those?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll give you the name. It's no problem. Like I said before, I'm transparent. He's actually a high school coach right now. He's a high school coach right now. His name is Ron Steele. He's probably one of the best basketball minds I've ever been around. It's ridiculous how smart he is. He was a great player at Alabama. Prior to him injuring his knee, he was slated to be a lottery pick. He messed his knee up, so didn't really fulfill his potential from a playing standpoint. But to this day, he's probably the most knowledgeable basketball coach that I've ever been around. He coaches at John Carroll High School in Birmingham right now because he wants to. He can literally coach at any level, but his mind is brilliant. And it's not one conversation that him and I had that kind of enlightened me. It's a series of conversations. We talk basketball literally every day, whether it's via group chat, phone conversation, it could be an email, and just his mind and how he sees the game. And I'll give you an example. One morning, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I like to work out early in the morning, right? So I'm running. He calls me and he said, "Ty, why do people do 3-man weave before practice? And I said, that's a great question. It really makes no sense if you think about it, because we all talk about spacing on offense. I said, when you do a 3-man weave, you're literally passing the ball to a person and you're running behind them. Like, how does that translate to basketball? It makes no sense. I said, the reason why people do it is because it's always been done and no one has ever questioned it. And from that moment on, we made it a point to literally think about all the different drills that we were taught to do when we were younger, so that we would no longer do them again. We wrote them all down and we broke them down, and if it didn't make sense, we stopped doing them to this day. So you will never see a 3-man weave in my practice, ever, ever. You won't even see a 4-man shell in my practice, ever. And I'm not saying it's a bad drill, but for me personally, the way my mind works, it doesn't make sense to me not to have 5 people out there, because you go on 4-man shell. I get it. It makes sense. You're teaching positioning. But when you add that 5th person, it changes everything. So why not have the 5th person out there to begin with? So for me, I don't do 3-man weave. I don't do 4-man shell drills. And that all stemmed from conversations I had with Ron Steele about 12 years ago.
Awesome, Coach. That's good stuff. So then you end up going to Auburn, correct? You linked up with your former coach at Georgetown, correct?
That's my sister.
Okay. So, what drew you there? You're still in the SEC. You're reconnecting with, a good friend. But you're successful at Alabama. You're really turning the program around there. There's no real crazy reason to leave. Was it the relationship? Was it that strong that you're like, okay, let's get to it together here at Auburn? And what did you learn that was important during that time? So just tell me the rhyme and reason and everything from that.
I'm gonna tell you the truth. I've never really shared this before. This is why I went to Auburn, right? Because I had no reason to leave Alabama at that particular time. The following year, we probably had the best talent, top to bottom, that we had since I've been in Alabama. A good friend of mine, Robert Mosley, he coaches at Georgia now. He was with me in Alabama. We talk about it all the time. We were literally too deep at every position. Top 5, top 10 recruiting class. I mean, we were rolling, so there was really no reason for me to leave Alabama at that time. But especially to go to their rival, Auburn. But let me explain to you how my mind works. I always felt like I left Georgetown too early. And I always felt like I owed it to her to come back and give her everything. So when she got the Auburn job, she didn't even want me at first. Let's just keep it 100. I wasn't her first choice, but I'm used to not being, people's first choice. I wasn't my wife's first choice either. She was married before me. You know what I mean? So that don't bother me. But when she didn't get who she wanted, she called me. And when she called me, I knew I was going immediately because I felt like I owed it to her. And that's how I am, man. So once I feel like I owe you something, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to be able to repay you, so that I can know in my heart I did what I was supposed to do. So it was unfinished business at Georgetown. So when she got back to Auburn, it gave me an opportunity to make right what I made wrong. So that's why I went.
Awesome. So you then, matter of fact, let's rewind a little bit. So young coaches, let's talk about young coaches. So a lot of young coaches think that they're ready for their first job, and I've had conversations with certain people, and certain coaches will say, as an assistant, you need 3 years, you need 4 years, you need to learn the landscape of coaching. And we all know that coaching is more than, you rolling the balls out and teaching kids drills and things like that. There's administrative work. There's, in regards to, making sure that people are aware of the team, building the brand of the school, things like that, the program, things like that. And I think sometimes as a coach, certain people don't really know who they are yet in their first year or two. That's a great question. I talked to a friend when I like first and second year coaching, and he was like, oh, this, and this, used to play, this, lots of things. And he's like, well, who are you? Like, if you were to walk in a room and with a kid, who would you tell them that you are? What's your non-negotiables, for lack of better terms, as a coach? And from then, at that moment, like, I didn't when I walked away from that conversation, you know, I started writing down my notes and things like that. And I knew at that point, I may not have known everything that I wanted to do, but I knew what I didn't want to do. You know, and I thought that was a good start for me. And now, you know, obviously I have a great feel of who I am as a coach. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm ready to be a head coach. So tell us some things and give some people some insight in regards to when you kind of knew. Because you know, you had experience, you know, you've been in the game, you know, 10 years as an assistant and things like that. And I'm sure, you know, you felt like you were ready, but you know, in year one and year two. But when did you know? When you're like, you know, I'm ready. I'm ready. And what were some things that you think young coaches need to know that before they enter that first gig, whether it be D3, D2, D1, like you need to know this. This is what you need to know. So just, you know, tell us a little bit.
That's a great question. Let me start out by saying, if you think you're ready, you're not. And I'm gonna say it again. If you think you're ready, you're not. And if you're constantly telling people you're ready, you're not. When you're truly ready, you know, and people are gonna be able to smell it on you. You won't have to tell anybody. It's just like, you know, I have kids, and you know, when my oldest turned 17, 18, she would always tell me, Daddy, I'm grown. Daddy, I'm grown. You know, Daddy, I'm grown. I'm like, baby, when you're grown, you won't have to tell me. I will know. You're trying to convince me and yourself subconsciously. Grown people running around saying I'm grown. You hear individuals who are reaching that point, but they're not really sure yet. That's why you're telling me. You know, so I use that analogy or that example when it comes to coaching, because to be completely honest with you, until you get in that chair, when you're sitting in that chair, there's going to be so many things that you hadn't thought about that you're going to think that you're prepared for, but you're not. But what's going to carry you over is having a sound philosophy. See, me personally, I don't have a system. You know, people ask me about my style to play. Everybody knows I love the press, but it's not a system, it's a philosophy. And I live my life that way. All my core values are in alignment with that philosophy. So I think as young coaches, start focusing on that. Realize who you are as a person first, because whoever you are as a person, it's going to bleed into your coaching, right? With me as a person, I'm authentic. I'm straightforward. The way my teams play, we're straightforward. I don't like wasting a lot of time. So it's going to affect the way we play from a pace standpoint, you know, and I don't like being around people who I'm not entertained by. I like having fun. I always said that I would never coach a game that I wouldn't pay to go see. So the way we play, right, is designed from that mindset. So I would tell young coaches, quit telling everybody you're ready and focus on your craft. Spend more time on your craft. Like you said, learn who you are as a person, because who you are as a person is going to automatically bleed over into your coaching, and people will see. And we can smell a fraud a mile away.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. Perfect sense, Coach. You then became the head coach at Tennessee State. What made this school an ideal fit for you in your coaching career? Because I mean, you could have kept going on the road you were going. You're Power 5. I'm sure you're getting handsomely compensated, and you know you could have kept doing your thing. But I believe, just based on our conversations, you're a guy of purpose. You know, everything you do serves a purpose. So why this school? Why now? I mean, I'm an HBCU kid myself, so you know, I got nothing but love for the decision. But just tell me why here? Why now?
Once again, you're going to notice a common theme here, right? I left Georgetown to go to Alabama because no one wanted me to. Everybody told me it was a bad decision. You're the worst team in the SEC. You may not be there but a year or two. There may be a coaching change. You know, everybody discouraged me based on their ideology, based on their perspective. But I don't make moves based on other people's perspective, right? Fast forward to Tennessee State. I mean, let's keep it 100. Probably the worst team in Division I. Last 4 years, they won 15 games. Nobody really wanted the job from the standpoint of being in my position. And what I mean by that is like you said, I've been in the SEC 13 years, associate head coach at 2 institutions. Last 5 years at Auburn, 3 out of the 5 years, he made it to the tournament. top 5 defensive team in the country in terms of turnovers. I'm a defensive coordinator. So I got a good life. I'm living a good life. You know, why would I want to go take on, you know, a challenge like that when I don't have to, when I'm comfortable here? Like I said before, you tell me I can't do something, you tell me not to do something, that's probably the one thing that I'm going to do. I have a chip on my shoulder. So coming here, man, it's been beautiful too. It's a challenge, you know, it's something that I don't take lightly, because what we're in the process of doing is building a culture from the ground up. You know, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I don't know if it's going to be 20 years, 2 years, 2 months, 200 years. I don't know. But while I'm here, there's something that we're committed to doing, and that's instilling a culture from the ground up that hopefully is going to be sustained, you know, when we're long and gone. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm going to do, no matter how long it is that I'm here, if that makes sense.
You know, we've all seen the clinics and things like that, and a hungry coach is always excited to learn something new. I'm so excited for Minnesota in the Final Four, because you got those conventions and things like that, and you're going to learn a lot. I'm excited to learn. I love to learn. But you know, sometimes like during the Zoom times, and there was those Zoom conferences, and everybody was stuck in the house. It's just an overload of information that's coming at you so fast. And you know, basketball is not something that you can run everything. We all know we can't be everything. We can't be this chameleon of sorts that we're going to play fast but slow. You know, we're going to, you know, you can't do everything, you know.
Right.
Whatever you're going to be, you're going to be. With that being said, you're a guy that's a learner. You learn a lot of stuff quickly, I'm sure. What is one thing that's mandatory for you? What is your non-negotiable with your program?
Pressure. We will never not press you, regardless. And when I say that, I mean that. I am obsessed with pressure. I really am. It's a sickness. It's unhealthy. Like when teams don't press, it's hard for me to pay attention. It really is. I'm that committed to it. I always have been, because that's the one part of the game that when I was a player, I hated. And I always wanted to approach the game from a coaching standpoint. You know, I wanted to coach based on what I hated to see, right? And not saying I couldn't handle it, I just didn't like dealing with it. No one wants someone in your face all the time. Even if they can handle it, they don't want to deal with it. Chris Paul is one of the greatest point guards in history. I guarantee you, if you ask him, he's not going to say, you know what, I just absolutely love trapping and people pressing me the whole game, every game. I love it. And he's probably a maestro. He can deal with it, but no one wants to deal with it for 40 minutes. So for me, if you don't want to press, I am definitely not the coach for you, because it's non-negotiable. And for me, the true definition of a team that presses is one that presses you after misses and is organized. That's the separator right there. Just like if you look at it from an offensive standpoint, teams say, well, we're a transition team. Well, if you don't run off makes, I don't consider you a transition team. Everybody run off long misses and turnovers. That doesn't make you a transition team. But if you put pressure on the defense after a make and they know it, that is a true transition team. So my philosophy from a defensive standpoint is the exact same thing. If you're not being pressed after a miss, then you're not a true pressing team, because everybody presses when they're down 12 with 2 minutes to go. Baylor did it yesterday against North Carolina. We all seen it.
Yeah. So you mentioned before, I love pressing. I'm like you. I'm a live and die by it. Like,
you love it. I'm upset.
You know, you mentioned that a true pressing team presses after misses and makes. How do you teach that? Is it more of a situational basketball? You constantly put the kids in those situations in practice so that they learn their angles and things like that. Is that what you do?
Absolutely. I don't think with playing this style that you really can simulate it via drill. You know, you can work on certain things via drill, i.e. closing up a trap, some rotations, but to really, really, truly understand, you know, what you need to be doing, makes misses, I think you really have to put them in a 5-on-5 situation where you're constantly simulating the game. So what we do a lot of is we'll play a lot of 3 to 5 minute games where we won't stop them and we'll film it. And then once those games are over, we'll go back and we'll break down certain situations, because I think with pressing, a lot of it is feel, a lot of it is instinct, but you can't get it unless you get those reps in, and as a coach, to play this way, you can't be a control freak. You got to let them go a little bit. We have what we call trap houses, where there's certain areas on the floor that ideally we want to trap you at. But at the same time, if the trap happens not in those particular areas, I'm not going to blow the whistle. Well, I don't even have a whistle, but I'm not going to stop playing and say, no, we can't trap there, because I always want them to err on the side of aggressiveness. It just has to make sense. My favorite question is why, and I ask them that. My kids will tell you, my young ladies will tell you, I probably say why 50 times a day. I'll stop them. I'll say, Katie, why did you trap her right there? And they're looking at me and I say, look, I'm not saying what you did was wrong. I just want to make sure that you understand why you did it, because that's not the trap house right there, right? So why did you go? Well, coach, she turned her back and I realized that she wasn't paying attention, and then my teammate cut her off. So I felt like it was a great opportunity for me to trap. I love that. You're absolutely right. So that's kind of how I see it. I don't think you can really teach this style by breaking it down and doing a lot of drill work. But at the same time, we do a lot of what I call small-sided games, where we play a lot of 3 to 5 minutes, let them go, and then break it down afterwards.
Yeah. Choose one. What is your ideal press? 2-2-1, man, run and jump full court, diamond press, 1-2-2. You can only ride with one for the game. You can only ride with one. What are we doing? What are we doing, Coach?
Christian, is tough. Let me explain why. I have my grandmother, God rest her soul, right? She used to cook, loved to cook, right? And she would make dressing, and you would taste this dressing, and you like, man, Granny, what you put in that dressing? And they never tell you their secrets, right? You'd be like, look, baby, I'm like, but my Granny, just teach me how to make it. No, but, well, baby, just add a little pinch of this, a little bit of that, and then and just keep tasting, and you'll get it. But they never tell you the ingredients, but it's good, right? That's how I am with pressing, right? Everything you just said, right? I combine all that into literally one press, but I can't tell you how, when, why, and where. Everything you just said, I combine all that into one press. So as I give you all my secrets, and somebody sees this, look, man, now it's like kryptonite. You know what I mean? I can't let that happen. So I'm going to answer that by saying, I love all of them. They all have a place.
Awesome. It's easy to talk about the good. I think as a person, as a coach, it's easy to talk about when you're, conference champions and, all the accolades are flowing your way, or when you're in the middle of a 10-game winning streak. But I think like we equally learn more, if not more, during the low points in our careers, in our lives. That's when you grow. I'm not saying you can't grow when it's going positive, but I feel like some of the biggest growths in your life go in moments of toughness. Tell me about one really tough moment in your coaching career that put you to the fire, that you were like, you know what, this may not be it for me. Or, it just made a moment in which you said, this is the crossover right here. Either I'm going to be a head coach or I'm not going to be a head coach. Or we're going to keep pushing, or we're going to move on to something else in our
lives. That's a great question. For me, I love basketball so much, but I hate the business of basketball. And once again, let's keep it 100. At this level, it's a results-oriented business. And for me, it isn't. It's a process for me. But I live by process, but I'm operating in a results-oriented business. So a lot of times there's a little bit of a conflict, right? I love the game. And I see a lot of great coaches who don't get opportunities because maybe they don't play the game well enough, if you know what I'm saying. So for me, a lot of times what sours me is when I see it happening. Individuals who should get opportunities, but they don't because they don't look a certain way, i.e. Black men, or they don't act a certain way. or they don't dress a certain way. And then I see a lot of these coaches who are millionaires who, quite frankly, they don't love the game. They love what the game brings them. And if you put that same person in a situation where they don't have the resources and they don't have, a lot of the opportunities that a lot of these other coaches don't have, I think you will see a totally different coach, or they may not even be in the profession. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them, you cut those salaries in half, I guarantee you the next day half those coaches wouldn't even be here. So for me, a lot of times I had to stop myself from focusing on that so much, because it really does bother me. It's almost like being a person who loves hip hop, and you can't get on, and then you see all these commercial cats who literally just using it to make money, and you live and you die by it, and it can frustrate you because you're doing it for all the right reasons, So for me, that's pretty much the only time I really get frustrated, man, when it gets away from the game. You know what I mean? Like, we're not talking about basketball. Why aren't we spending 45 minutes on how to defend ball screens? But instead, you're going to be on TV, so you're focusing on what you're going to wear because it's a TV game. Like, what are we talking about? Let's get back to basketball. So for me, if it's not basketball, I get a little bit frustrated. And then if it's not about the kids, I'm real big on that, man. I got 4 kids myself, and I consider myself a teacher. I think coaching is synonymous, with teaching. I taught as well. So I taught 6th grade. I was a substitute teacher. I had a 6th grade class. So I treat coaching the exact same way. When I'm practicing, practice to me is like a lecture. The game is a test. It's all similar. A lesson plan is a practice plan. So for me, the focus needs to always be on the kids, and how can we get the kids to look at this from a perspective of, okay, 5 years from now, when I look back, wow, now I understand why Coach Ty said this. Now I understand why Coach Ty was upset. Now I understand why he was frustrated. It's not because he was getting on me. It's because he wanted to make me a better person. Now I get it, because those are the coaches that resonated with me. So my whole focus is on making sure that I can be that positive impact in those players' lives. And then the other thing, like I said before, let's just keep it about basketball, right? All this other stuff. It's fine to make money. Don't get me wrong. We all like money. I like money too, but not at the expense of my integrity. And that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hopefully I answered your question. I know I was a little bit long-winded on that, man.
Coach, I'm not a rusher. Good things come with time. I hope I'm not holding you too much, because I got questions and I'm always looking to learn something new. So if we good, we good. You always straight by me.
I'm straight like Indian here.
You once said in an interview, we celebrate everything, big wins, small wins, stuff in practice. It's who we are, and a part of the culture we are building. That's something you said. Can you elaborate a little bit on that statement and how it correlates to the culture that you're building? And give me a cornerstone, a catchphrase. So that's a 2-part question on you. Like, some coaches, we for us, for example, we say locked in. We're locked in. One of my favorite sayings I say to people: guard your yard. Like, that's my thing. You can't stay in front of your man. I can't stand it. It drives me insane. If you can't guard your yard, everything else happens. We're not put in situations if you can stay in front of your man. That's one of my personal things. But just answer that question in 2 parts of it. So why do you guys celebrate everything? Why is that so important?
Once again, everything that I do in basketball, from a coaching standpoint, is how I live my life, right? I'll give you an example, like our core values, right? The first one is fun. You know why? You know why?
I know why in my mind, but why is it?
It's simple. I love to have fun. And I just remember what I said about 15 minutes ago. I'm not going to coach a team that I wouldn't pay to go watch, because basketball is entertainment, right? I love having fun. So fun is my core value, not just in coaching. That's who I am as a person. If I'm not having fun, something's wrong. I love having fun, right? Passion, right? Why would you do something that you don't love to do? Competitiveness. There's a reason why there's a scoreboard, right? Accountability. I'm real big on accountability. That's huge for me because I think a lot of people don't hold themselves accountable. I probably use that word more than any one word in our program. Accountability. Look in the mirror. Be able to tell yourself when you're right or when you're wrong. Hold yourself accountable. It's very important. And then the last one is service, right? You got to be in a position where you don't have a problem helping somebody else, right? So those are our core values. That's what we stand on. So when I talk about we celebrate everything, it's real simple. Life is too short. Look at what's going on over in Ukraine right now. Life is too short. So what are you waiting to celebrate for? I tell people now, look, I'm 49 years old. I got 25 summers left. Guess what? I'm enjoying the hell out of my summers, and I'm not letting nobody disturb my groove. You feel me? So why not celebrate everything, the big, the small? What are we waiting on? What you gonna wait? Wait for what? What if you don't live to see it? So that's how I live my life, bro. So we win, we celebrating. You know, we finish a sprint or whatever, we celebrating. We create a turnover, that's a party. You know, I love music, so we have music blasting, practice in the locker room. I love music too, right? So I'm the same person I was now that I was when I was 17, 18. I think a lot of times too, when coaches become a quote unquote head coach, they get different. You know, they start acting like a head coach, whatever the hell that means. You know, you see them on the sideline. Though, you ever notice 95% of the coaches, they stand with their arms folded? Why is your arms folded? Why? What are you folding? I guarantee you half of them don't even realize they do it because they've seen somebody else do it. Go watch the game today. I guarantee you every coach is going to be on the sidelines and they're standing up before the game even starts. What are you standing up for? If you told them what to do in practice, what are you standing up for? That's just like a teacher in a classroom interrupting you while you're taking a test, right? The game should be a test. Let's see if your lessons work. What are you standing up for? But everybody does it. Why? Because it's always been done a certain way. So when I say celebrate everything, I can't understand why you wouldn't celebrate everything.
Yeah.
And what's the second part? I forgot the second part of the question. My bad.
Oh, it's okay. A catchphrase. You mentioned the catchphrases on the team and your mantras and things like that. So
press play, baby. Press play. We talk about it all the time. Press play. You know, and it's a double entendre though, right? Mm-hmm. Once again, it's how I live my life. Press play. When you get up in the morning, when your feet hit the ground, it's time to get it popping. Press play. Let's go, right? And also the way we play, it's a pressing philosophy, offensively and defensively. We want to constantly put pressure on you so that you have to make basketball decisions to beat us. So now we're taking the coach out of the game because most coaches are control freaks, right? Everybody wants to call a play, hey, in the middle of the game, three. Did you not tell them what to do in practice, right? So we're trying to put you in positions where you don't have time to get instructions from your coach. We want to eliminate the coaching as much as possible from the game. We're going to see if your lessons in practice can carry over to the game. So that's how we play, man. Press play. That's the mantra right there. Love it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the summertime. Summertime's a special time. You know, in July is when we really start kicking up the teams and doing workouts and things like that. Really can start building your foundation with the kids. You've now been a coach there for 2 summers, correctly? At Tennessee.
Well, this will be my second summer.
Your second summer, okay.
Yeah, I got the job real late. I got the job, close to Labor Day, 2020. Yeah, right after the pandemic. Yeah, so this is going into my second summer.
Okay. Even better. So last year was your first summer. What were you trying to instill during that time? You know, because time is money. Time is money, and you're not, you don't have any games at that time, and you want to maximize every moment you have with those kids at that point. So your first year you didn't get that, but this year you got it. So it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is I'm mapping this out. This is what we're gonna do. So just tell me about that time.
Well, a lot of it for me was just trying to figure it out. You know, when you're instilling a culture, right, from the ground up, you can't skip any steps. You may think, as you're walking in, well, they're going to do X, Y, and Z. You don't know because you haven't even met your players. I had a brand new team, literally a brand new team. So none of these players had ever even spent time with each other. They hadn't even talked to each other. Because of the pandemic, we weren't even allowed to go out and recruit. So everybody that I brought in was based off word of mouth, synergy, and basically a lot of kids that, quite frankly, a lot of other schools wasn't really interested in, right? So we had to mold a group together, literally from the ground up, while trying to install a culture. So for me, it was just taking time to learn who they were as people, seeing what they like to eat, seeing, what aggravates them, just learning them as people. The one thing that I never do is I never try to coach you if I don't know you. I spend a lot of time understanding who you are. And this generation is different. It's a text-based generation. It's a social media-based generation. So I had to be more open-minded. I had to text more. Hey, how you doing? I had to pay attention to what music they like. I had to pay attention to their style in terms of how they dress. All of that's important because once you know a person, to me, you're better able to coach a person. So I spent a lot of time in the summer not really worrying about basketball as much as getting to know them as people, because you know how it is when you're coaching women as well. I always tell people I've coached males and I've coached females, right? I coached a professional team in Norway when I was 29 years old, right? I've coached in college women's basketball for over 20 years. And people always ask me what's the biggest difference between coaching male and coaching female. And I tell them it's not the basketball part. No, the biggest difference, and it's real simple. Males are motivated by playing time. Females are motivated by relationships, i.e., if you can connect with a female and she feels like she cares about you, she'll run through a wall for you. Guys, it's not as important. You ain't got to be their friend. They just want to play. So that's one thing that I've always felt, and that's one thing that I've always took to heart. So with me being a head coach and coaching women's basketball, the relationship part for me is the most important. And I feel like I have different but effective relationships with each and every one of my student athletes, my young ladies.
Mm-hmm. It's HBCU, right? The experience is different. Deion Sanders has said, if you ever let one of the kids I'm recruiting come to us, during, one of our special days, it's over. During homecoming, it's over. You send that kid during homecoming, it's over. And, I've been there. Homecoming is a different experience. I don't think there's any colleges that can really curate that experience. It's just one of those things. If you've been there, you've been there. How do you sell Tennessee State?
How do I sell it?
Yeah. What makes you guys special?
Ironically, I don't use that because that's what every other HBCU use. And for me, what I'm learning is that the potential recruit who wants to come because of homecoming probably isn't putting in a lot of work on their game. They want the experience, but they're not really there for the right reasons. That stuff is great, but there's a reason why you're here, right? You got to keep it prioritized. It's about academics, it's about athletics, then it's the social component. But a lot of times at an HBCU, the social becomes the most important thing. It's not, hey, I love Catfish Fridays just as much as you do. I love Fried Chicken Wednesdays as well, but I also know if I don't work out, I'm gonna be 300 pounds, So as a player, if you just come into TSU because of the HBCU experience, there's a good chance I'm gonna stop recruiting you. I want you to be here. I want you to be about this basketball first, because guess what? It's still a results-oriented business. If you're spending more time on the yard than you are on the floor, on the court, and it's going to be a problem. So I look at it a little bit differently, man. It's great to have, but I don't use it as a selling point. Once again, you got to be obsessed with basketball, bro. With me, you got to be obsessed with basketball. You got to be obsessed with growth, and everything else is gravy.
I used to work from home. For years, I worked for an international company. My first job out of college. Me personally, I would never, when I worked remotely, I wouldn't work from my bed. I actually used to go to a different place, a different space in the house, or go out to a Starbucks or something like that, to keep my safe space mentally appropriate. When I'm, like I tell people, the bed is for sleeping. Like the bed ain't for eating and this and that and all that. That's what that is for. But with that also being said, some people have an issue with bringing their work home. Now, I know in this business, it's tough not to bring your work home. You got, scouting reports and, recruiting calls and this and that. But everything comes, at a price, for lack of better terms. How do you navigate those feelings? How do you create balance? Can you create the balance? Are you someone who struggles with the balance?
There is no balance. Let's keep it a beam. There is no balance. There's no such thing as 50-50. No such thing. It's just like a relationship. I think that's the biggest lie that's ever been told. It's never 50-50. Sometimes it's 30-70, sometimes it's 20-80, sometimes it's 10-90, right? The key is to understand when you have to give more time and attention to this part of your life as opposed to that part of your life. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. Like if my child has had a tough day at school, right? And I have to get this scouting report done, right? That my child's feelings is going to take precedence over that scouting report. I can't be doing the scouting report while asking her how's her day, right? Her feelings is going to take precedence. So we're going to make sure that we ask all the right questions. We're going to make sure that once that conversation is over, she's in a safe space mentally and emotionally, psychologically, so that she can deal with what she's dealing with. And then once I know that that's been done, then I will focus on the scouting report. And I may say, hey, look, y'all, give me about an hour so I can lock in, I can focus, and then I'll be back. But the key though is when you say that, you have to mean it and you have to do what you say you're gonna do. You can't say, give me an hour and then take an hour and a half, because now that trust is starting to erode. So what I do is if I say, give me an hour, after that hour, I'm done. I shut it down. I may wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and knock it out, but that hour, once that hour's over, I'm done. Now that establishes trust. So now my kids know that when it's their time, I'm locked in, right? But when it's my time to focus, I'm locked in, and they respect my time and they give me that time. So I don't necessarily think that there's balance. You just have to figure out what deserves your time at that particular moment, and then really be locked in to whatever occupies your time at that particular time, if that makes sense.
Couple more questions, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can only be one. You got to choose. You're a great X's and O's guy, down by one. You're on the sideline, baseline out of bounds, sideline out of bounds. Somebody get loose. You get in the basket. You're Brad Stevens. You can, any situation, you're Rick Carlisle. Put me in a situation and my guy's getting open. The right guy's getting a look. Period. That's what we do. But on the back end of it, your personality is kind of, bland, on the blander side and the mellower side. And, you're not a fiery guy. You're not a guy that is going to move the troops, for lack of better terms. Mm-hmm. Or you can be a guy that makes me want to run through the brick wall. You're Coach Carter. You Denzel Washington and Remember the Titans. You that guy. You're somebody that moves mountains, but down by one, baseline out of bounds, you got nothing for them. You don't know what to say. You're not going to the clipboard. That's just not you. That's not who you are. Get it in bounds, guys, and get a basket. Good luck. That's what you say. So you can only choose one. Which one are you and why?
All right. Let me make sure I remember exactly the 3 options I got. The first guy is an X and O guy, right?
First, it's 2 options. The first guy is an X and O guy.
Okay.
But his personality is kind of bland.
Okay.
It doesn't move the guys. The
X and O guy, bland personality.
Yeah, it doesn't really move them.
Okay.
The second one, fiery personality, passion, full of passion, makes kids want to run through mountains. But if you're down by one, he can't really manufacture a basket or an opportunity. It's kind of just, whatever happens, happens. He's not that guy. Which one are you? Which one would you, if you could only choose one, which one would you choose?
I'm the first guy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. You can hire a cheerleader. You can hire an Eric Thomas. But once your kids realize that you don't know what you're doing and what you're talking about, you lose them completely. Easy answer.
Awesome.
Now, the flip side is you can also hire an X and O guy that's bland, and you can be Coach Carter, right? But the problem is when you're the quote unquote leader of the program, everything starts and ends with you. It resonates with you. The one thing you don't want to become as a coach is the coach that the players don't think knows what he's doing or he or she is doing or what they're talking about, because you lose them completely.
Mm-hmm.
Can't win that way. You can't sustain winning that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All the rah-rah is like being a Baptist minister on Sunday. That's great during church on Sunday, but by Wednesday, you back to sinning again.
Oh, Coach. If you can give a young coach one piece of advice, what would it be? You know,
Man,
it's
fall in love. Yeah, easy. Fall in love with your craft and
Mhm.
really focus and spend time with your craft, because if you love something that much, you're gonna want to spend time on it. But I think that's the biggest not mistake, but when I see young coaches now, they're trying to work their way up. And I'm not saying they're not passionate about it, but I don't see them really putting in that time. I say putting in that time, it's not just watching synergy, it's constantly evolving your philosophy and understanding why your philosophy is what it is, and studying other philosophies and taking things from other coaches. You may not agree with their style of play or how they coach, but just taking nuggets from other coaches and spending time looking at, I spend a lot of time looking at European basketball. One of my favorite teams is Alvarez over in Lithuania, and Coach Trinchieri, he's probably the master technician when it comes to ball screens. He's in Italy. I mean, just spend time on your game, and then spend time also on yourself and understanding how important it is to be able to communicate and interact and read and write and interview yourself while you're driving back and forth to work. Just constantly work on your craft, because that's the only way you're going to get better at it.
Mm-hmm. What can we expect to see from this team? Not wins, not losses. If I were to come to a game, if I caught a game and I was walking out the door after the game, what do you think I would see? How would I feel?
That's a great question. And I always say this when people kind of ask me a question that's similar. What we try to do with how we play and how we run our program is we want you to come in a spectator and leave as a fan. Because if you leave as a fan, you're going to talk about us when you're away, and hopefully you're going to come back and then bring somebody else with you. And that's the kind of feeling that we want you to have, when you watch us play. We want to entertain you. Basketball is a form of entertainment as well. It's a source of entertainment, and people want to be entertained. It's just like when you leave a concert, you want to feel good. When you leave a game, especially from watching us play, we want you to feel good. We want you to be in the car calling somebody like, yo, you got to go watch this team play, man. They're fun. They work well together. You can tell there's no egos. They rock with their coach. The coach rocks with them. We want you to have that feeling when you leave from watching us play, and I think we're on the right track as well, but I always say that just to keep it short, just to kind of reiterate what I always said. We want you to come as a spectator, but leave as a fan.
Mm-hmm. The first year was a rough year. This year, you guys, we talked about it off camera. You guys, in my opinion, had a really strong year. You made a tremendous jump in regards to the win column. 12 games this year. A really solid season. It's a very solid conference. Why were you guys able to make a big jump in year two?
I actually knew we were going to make a big jump. I knew probably the third day that we were together this summer, because once again, you know me, we've been talking over an hour. I got to be 100 with you. I knew that first year was going to be rough, but that's kind of why I took the job, because I like to challenge myself. I knew we needed to overhaul the talent. I had a lot of beautiful kids, love them to death. And a lot of them, it wasn't their fault that they were in that position. But I commend that first group, and I'm still close with a lot of them to this day because they gave me everything they had. But there's something to be said about when you've lost for so long, you really develop what's called a losing mentality. There were probably 2 or 3 games in that first year that quite frankly, we could have won, but because they've never been in that position and they told me that, they didn't know how to win, right? Which is why we had to go in a different direction. So fast forward to this year, I knew we had a group that was going to be able to make a jump, but I also knew it was my job to figure out how to develop and mesh that chemistry so that we can have that chemistry to be able to make that jump. And to be honest with you, Christian, we were well on our way. I know we got 12 wins, but we were on pace to get 18 to 20 before the injury bug hit us. And it hit us all at the wrong time. It was literally like 3 or 4 players, 3 of them were starters, all at the same time in February when you're looking to make that jump, right? So it was unfortunate. You know, like I said before, I never would have thought that I would be in a position where I probably would have accepted having COVID at that point better than what we had to deal with, because at least in COVID, you're only out for 10 days. You know what I mean? And it's not an injury. I mean, it's not an injury, you know, God forbid, you know, I know COVID can turn into something worse. I'm not trying to minimize that at all, but from the standpoint of where we were, COVID would have been a lot easier to deal with and a lot easier to convey and articulate with our kids, because it was frustrating because it was nothing we could do about it, you know, but we held it together, man. I'm proud of them, man. We held it together.
Anything you missed I want to share? It could be basketball related, non-basketball related. Anything that's on your mind. I know I asked a bunch of questions. I'm a question asker, but I mean, it's this, you know, I don't want you to walk away feeling like, you know, I wish Christian asked me this one question, whether it be basketball or basketball related or unbasketball related, that I want to share something in your heart that you want to share with the people. So this is your chance to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Man, I really think you've done a phenomenal job of asking me questions. You've definitely done your research. Like I've never been asked about the romantic comedies. You know, that's kind of like my guilty pleasure right there.
Gotta be right, Coach.
You caught me off guard on that one. You definitely did your homework on that one, man. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, man. I'm a sucker for romantic comedy, man. I'll cry. I'll watch The Notebook like 3 times in a row, man. I love it, man. Love Jones. I love it, man. So I don't have anything else ready to add, but I really want to just say thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it. To be completely honest, like I'm not really a guy who talks a lot. You know, I don't do a lot of podcasts. I don't do a lot of clinics and things like that. And it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's just not me, man. I just kind of stay in my lane and do what I do. And the people that I rock with. You know, the people that I don't, you know. So, but I just want to thank you, man, for having me on. I've enjoyed it. I appreciate it. Hopefully I was able to offer a few nuggets to you and whoever's listening, whoever's watching, man. But that's about it, man. I don't have anything else to add. I just appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome, Coach. Thank you again for your time. I learned a lot, and I'm sure they will learn a lot as well. All right, you have a good
cool. My man, appreciate you.